Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bit Show. I'm Meghna,
And I'm Upamanyu.
and we've got a great show planned for you. We're going to be talking about our headline topic, and if you know, and if you've been following the news, you know what the God Squad means. So this God Squad, a U.S. government panel, is waiving Endangered Species Act to allow drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about how ancient carbon venting from lakes in the Congo Basin peatlands is actually releasing carbon from these old lakes. What else do we have on the roster groups?
Similar to the main headline topic, we have another sort of exploration mission that is unfolding in the Amazon. So, the Peru-Brazil Bioceanic Railway. So, we'll be sort of exploring that topic. This is a story from the Manga Bay. And there's also apparently there's a boom of these lab made things and de-extinction and all these biotech organizations and companies. So the latest of them being a lab made jaguar. We will talk about that story. And as always, we have some shorter stories. There's an interesting one around a sperm whale birth being recorded. This one from Natrio will be sort of exploring those things, and then there are some species discoveries and some other shorter stories.
Okay, guys, so let's talk about our headline topic and why we're calling them the anti-environment God Squad. I mean, it's amazing that someone gets to call themselves God Squad, but still, God Squad waives endangered species law to allow U.S. drilling in Gulf of Mexico. This is an article by The Guardian. A US government panel has controversially exempted oil and gas drilling in the Gulf of Mexico from the Endangered Species Act, potentially endangering already vulnerable marine life. The God Squad, comprising largely of Trump administration officials, unanimously approved the exemption requested by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, citing national energy supply concerns. Critics argue this decision prioritizes fossil fuels over conservation, especially threatening the critically endangered Rice's whale, of which only 51 remain, and other species impacted by the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Environmental groups like Earth Justice condemn the move as exploiting a self made gas crisis and risking further extinction. The committee hadn't convened in over 3 decades before this vote. Wow. I mean, so they did not need to meet for 3 decades, but they were already called the gods for even earlier. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but a self-proclaimed god and calling yourself that, and actually, you're sticking to that name because you're deciding what happens to these whales and other species that stay there. Like it's a marine beautiful place, but you just want to plunder it for oil that you yourself are creating a problem for. Like, wow, you are actually god, aren't you?
I mean, I think the opposite of God might be more likely suited for this particular thing. But I think the world energy needs is has reached that. I mean, it had already reached that too much level. You know, a few years back, but it is sort of this monster that sort of keeps on growing. And even though there is so much um, push for renewable energy and sort of all the alternate energy sources, unfortunately there's nothing that there's nothing that competes right now with in terms of energy output with the fossil fuels, or or the lobby is not letting any other energy source sort of win that game, because they are the ones that they want to control everything. So, I mean, yeah, they can cite national security and all these different things. Of course, they will cite, because that's the only way it seems the administration can or wants to get anything done right now.
To be honest, I think it is very much related or directly related to the Iran war and the oil crisis from there, and which is why they're saying that this is a self-made gas crisis, which is what Earth Justice is calling it, because you have created this war and you have created this strapping like this. What do you say, the bottleneck, so that you don't have gas, so then they're passing this order. So that is probably why they've convened in over 3 decades, because there is a crisis now caused by the US itself. So they're the
Mhm.
god that has caused it, and then they're the god that decides what they have to do to exploit something else. If not a country, then let's exploit the ocean.
Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. I mean, there has been so many treaties around the world. So we have learned so much around, how not to do things. We have learned over the last 250 years how not to do things, but we still keep repeating the same things, the same mistakes that we did maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It's the same thing, same ways. We just keep going into and exploiting nature in the same ways, as if we have learned nothing. um
It is absolutely true, and I don't care about, like, I mean, I do care about that part, but I think, like, for me, the environment and what any person in power does for the environment matters a lot about what I think about them. And with Trump, even when he had been a president earlier, I think my major gripe with him was that he was so anti-environment. Like, he did not believe in scientific facts, he did not believe in climate change. He did not believe in global warming. And he believed in drilling and mining and rolling back all the environmental, policies that were in place. He just weakens the environment policies every time. And I do not. And obviously, I think a lot of these presidents and prime ministers who are in power, they're so old, they're probably going to die in like a few years, but they're going to create this havoc of a world for everyone else who's going to stay for the next, I don't know, whatever amount of years that we're going to stay on this world.
I think that is right, and I think there is a inherent, maybe this is my uh, theory and hypothesis, that maybe there is a innate clash between politics and environment, because there is no politician who's in power in strong support of the environment. Even if there are, they are not in the media. So either there is no politician who supports the environment, or there is no media that is willing to cover these kinds of politicians, or there is a strong sort of ideological difference between politics and environment thinking, and only one or the other can exist in a mind at once.
Yeah, and that's really sad that that happens. I don't think all countries like Bhutan do prioritize their government, their environment. They don't have a government; they have a king, but I mean, still someone in power, and they are still actively looking out for their country and their citizens, than just their development and economic goals. Like, one of the rare countries, I think there are some other countries that are doing that, but really, really rare to see like environment and the
But
citizens being.
Bhutan is very much motivated by religious goals. They're a Buddhist nation. They practice that non-violence, or what Buddhism teaches, and they are very much uh, goal-oriented or religion-oriented. The whole nation, and king-oriented. So I think they have held they have made the idea of environment sacred and over all capitalistic gains, but no other country is able to do that. And as we can see, like it is going in the other direction.
Right.
um
I think like probably some of the smaller island nations, they have to, like they don't have an option. So some of them prioritize, saving the marine environment around them. But obviously, I think smaller countries are not in the race as for the economic
Not
development and
at the
economic.
government level. I don't think they are doing it at the government level. They're doing it at the grassroots level, and everybody is doing it, but not because there is a government policy,
No,
but because there is a innate sort of, or like, desire of the people to do that thing, not because government has mandated to do something, or the government is putting full steam behind that idea. That is the
I
thing
don't
we
think
have to
so.
do.
Like I think in smaller countries, probably like Tonga and Tuvalu and other countries, it is probably the government also that takes initiative that like these marine places have to be saved, or these places cannot be fished, because it's a small country and they're dependent on their ocean. So unless you protect the ocean, you're kind of uh, just hitting the nail in your own coffin. So
Yes, I mean, if push comes to shove, they will let go of the ocean, because it is, if they're depending on the ocean, even if you say that is true, again, I don't know it, but even if
but
what you say, if it's true, they're depending on it for their own our own economic gains.
but oops, like there was Obama before this. There was and Obama did not, of course he had his own share of wars and other kind of things, but he believed in environmental damage, and he had a lot of policies in place. Even Biden had a lot of policies in place. He wasn't just signing any and all projects that were anti-environmental. They did take things into consideration. But Trump, on the other hand, he just
Yeah, I
doesn't
agree.
care. Like he
This
just doesn't
administration
care.
has gone to the extreme. I agree with that. But no other administration has done, I think, have they, no administration has, this has gone like extreme, like no one even thought about this extreme, where repealing laws and canceling laws and things like that is being talked about. But no administration has gone that bare minimum step, even, I feel like.
See, I think the thing is that he has, like even protected areas he has rolled back. He has even like taken off those forest ranger positions and all when he came in, so that like he could have larger areas to exploit in the name of economic development. A lot of things that he had done, and everything is anti-environmental. That is because he doesn't believe in saving the environment even one bit. I know that the other presidents or prime ministers, whoever come in different parts of the world, they have to prioritize two things. They have to prioritize how they can, like have their environmental goals, like because they're part of COP, or they're part of some other, policy or legislation or binding agreement. So they have some kind of um, actions that they have to take because they're part of something. But with Trump, it's just not that. And this area, this particular area, the Gulf of Mexico, has already been subject to this extremely huge oil leak in 2010 because of the oil rig spill that was called Deepwater Horizon. So there was a deep water mining for oil, and that went haphazard, and it leaked 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf. And most of the wildlife was affected then. And still, despite what happened in 2010, now in 2025, the Trump administration approved BP's new 5 billion ultra deepwater drilling project in the Gulf. So after that huge spill that killed 11 workers, spilled millions of gallons, killed a lot of wildlife, now they have that approval, like a new company has that approval. And it's not even a new company. It was just BP back then, it's BP back. It's BP even now.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, also I believe that the public, again, I'm exclusively talking about democratic nations. The common public is not ready for a politician who runs on the platform of environment. I have never heard more than 5 seconds mention of environment and environmental policies in a campaign speech, for example, be it here, there, or any other country. I have never heard that. So I also think the public isn't ready for a politician who runs on the platform of environmental policies and environmental, um living in cohesion with the environment and those kinds of things. So
Can
because
maybe because the public is also not aware. I mean, how many people, I think also, the whole awareness and knowing that you have to be responsible for the environment also comes with education. I feel like, like you cannot have poor people um trying to fight for the environment because they have enough on their plate. They have to just survive every day. So you cannot expect them to be fighting for the environment or knowing what is happening in the environment world. I think that is also a privilege that comes with education and being at some level that you know what is actually happening and then talk about it. So that is one of the things. Second, there are people who are educated, who have jobs, who are every day in the economy, but very much still detached from the environment or nature or any of its news. Like, people just don't care because they think it's not going to directly impact them. So, and this I think we've spoken about. Like, there's a small percentage of humans that actually care and are fighting. Like, the majority doesn't care. Like till it doesn't come, push comes to shove kind of thing, where COVID starts killing people, and then people take really tough measures because it comes onto
no, I mean,
us.
COVID also, they didn't do anything. COVID that didn't do anything for the environment, and other than stopping all the polluting factors and stopping the shipping lines and things
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
They
It
did
did
that.
clear out the pollution in a lot of places by stalling movement of
Yeah,
people.
but it was a side effect of that lockdown. If COVID wasn't being spread by contact, then it would have been a completely different scenario. And if it was something else that was causing COVID, then it is just a by chance kind of effect, which we can't rely on by chance effects anymore.
No,
That is what
but
I'm saying.
but my point is that is when the public gets involved. Like, when it comes on to humans, like when it comes on to us, like the majority or majorly people are not affected because it doesn't affect them directly. Like, even microplastics, for example, like it is such a slow
I
poison.
think our attitude is very. I think the attitude we will have, even when it starts affecting us, is that how do we solve it rather than how do we get out at there and cause cure the root cause. You were we were discussing about the startup who is trying to sell artificial sunlight. This is a
Yeah.
problem that does not exist, and this is a solution for a problem that does not exist. So I think that is the by default stance we will take, and we want to take always, which really does not give me any hope. Because if we are willing to go this far, and even like you talked about poor people, I think poor people and the people who are connected with nature, the tribes and all the other people, they are the ones that will jump to the. I think it's the educated people that we need to worry about the most, because they are like, we will just find a solution, we'll just find a scientific solution like a device, or we love I'm talking about India. We love to have private solutions to public problems. Not
Yeah.
only India, all over the world. Oh, the air is bad, let's put on an air purifier. The humidity is bad, let's put on a dehumidifier. The weather is bad, let's put on a air condition. The electricity is bad, let's put on a inverter. The voltage is bad, let's put on a stabilizer. And this problem is not only in India, it's like all over the world. Let's find these technological solutions, but nothing that goes out. if there is microplastic, oh, we'll invent some kind of operation that will go in and take out all the microplastics, some AI bullshit, and we will not go out there and fix it. So that is my worry in all this that is happening, that once the can of worms is open, it's very difficult to revert it back. So that's why I think there are people who are protesting this and trying to get this off the Senate table. But that is the thing. Once you do it, then it is very difficult to roll it back.
Yeah, but the whole point is, see, the tribes and people who are connected to the land are very different. Not every person is a tribe, and there are poor people in cities also working in really slummy conditions,
Those are
like
the urbanized poor.
exactly, but they don't have to be, we shouldn't hold them accountable for what is happening to the internet and having to, sorry, to the environment and having to speak up about it and everything. So we can't hold them accountable. But the ones who are educated, we can hold them accountable because they can read up, they can protest, they can at least sign, petitions, and they can do something that gets the voice heard. But people don't care. People don't care because it hasn't come on to them. So that is the thing. And like how you were saying, that we think that we will always find a solution for something, so we'll put a band-aid on that issue. Like
Hmm. That is what it is.
we'll not try to solve it, we'll not try to make, make nature and environment our proper, our priority, but we will do everything else, that we can, to harm nature, but see that, our economic development is in place, and there is bare minimum respect that we would give to nature. It's literally that thing where they say that, if trees gave out Wi-Fi, we would be planting them everywhere crazily. It's just sad that they give only the oxygen that we breathe. It's literally like that.
Yeah, I think I don't know how far this is in the thing. If there is any way to stop this thing, no idea. But
I don't know if you can really stop someone calling themselves the God Squad. So yeah, so much for calling themselves that, and then exploiting the environment. Like, if you really really believed in the image of a god as they say it is, like the creator, then you cannot be a destructor and call yourself a god squad. But
yeah, that's the state of things now. If anyone listening knows a solution to this, or if there is a solution to this, I'm sure there must be in a democratic way. Um, if there is a solution, please comment it down there, because yeah, this seems really really bad. And again, this is like every little uh, protest, or every little every little protest that can be done should be done, because otherwise, the things will just first an inch, then a little bigger than an inch, then a yard, and then a mile. So it will just keep on happening and keep on compounding if not stopped.
yeah, and I think for things like this, we really need to band up together and start talking about it, because we do not actually know the power we hold, but as a collective community, we have a lot of power in impacting how the government can change policies on things. Of course, not every country does it, not every country bands together, but voices get heard. So it is very, very important that our voice gets heard in such matters, because I mean that the government is going to be responsible for the extinction of one of the species of whales and
Hmm.
other marine wildlife, and we have to step up to talk about the, and the funniest part is that the energy crisis is is caused by something that you have caused a problem for. So it's like one bratty child wanting all the gifts in a store. So you want to go do the Iran war, and then you want to go exploit another place because the Iran war is causing like shortage of gas and other energy. So you can't have everything, right? Like if you've created the war, then you put an end to it and try to figure out how to solve the crisis of the world, the gas crisis of the world, instead of exploiting a new place.
Yeah, I think that is the approach any sensible person would take, but um, I don't know what level of um, you know thinking will even go into this. So, if you're in the US, if you know of a way to stop this from happening, or at least like I guess in a democratic fashion, um, put the point forward that this should not happen, and get the support and put it forward to your senators or to your representative political representative, then you know do it. But otherwise the situation looks pretty bleak as it stands.
It does. It does. There are a lot of posts running about this, and there are a lot of bombarding going on. Environment groups are sending emails and are sending, I think, by post, by email, by other ways. They're communicating. They're trying to tell the government not to do this. So there are active ways to support the the environmental groups that are actually against this move. So just we'll see if we can try to get some links to put in the pinned comment. Otherwise, it's very easy to search online for the God Squad and the anti-environment move that they're making.
Cool. I think that's what we had to say about that. In terms of similar story that is coming from the Amazon, this is a story published in the Manga Bay, and it's headlined Peru-Brazil Bioceanic Railway. Um, Bioceanic um, railway brings too much risk to the Amazon, experts warn.
I think it's
Plans for a
bio-oceanic. I don't know. Or bi.
bioceanic
Oh, bi-oceanic. Is it because it's two countries? Bi?
could be. We'll find
Okay.
out. Plans for a bioceanic railway connecting Peru and Brazil's Atlantic and Pacific coasts. Yes, it is a bioceanic. Atlantic and Pacific coasts are sparking environmental, social concerns. While no definitive route exists, all proposals traverse sensitive areas of the Peruvian Amazon and Andes Mountains, threatening indigenous communities and ecosystem. Feasibility studies are underway following a cooperation deal signed between Brazil and China in July 2025, with Peru also joining in discussions with Chinese officials regarding railway infrastructure development. The Chance Sierra Central section was awarded to a Chinese company in January 2026. Experts warn the of potential harm, despite authorities stating a final route hasn't been determined, highlighting the need for careful consideration of impacts. This is in a similar. This is something that they're doing similarly to the last story. They're just not calling themselves God Squad, but again, this is Brazil is such. Sorry, the Amazon is such a important area, and this project, the Bioceanic Railway, it is wanting to cut through those particular the sensitive areas of the Brazilian Amazon, and well, that's not the greatest of idea, because it's not only about building a thin railway track, It's about all the excavation, mining, all the clearing that has to go, all the people that have to stay for the construction of that railway. It will wreak havoc in that stretch of the forest and the land. And also, I think here some humans are also involved because they are actually passing through indigenous territories and indigenous communities, etc.
Yeah, and I think the problem, the main problem with this is that we don't need it, right? Like, do they actually need a bi-oceanic railway? Something that's, it sounds like something that's more pretty, or more something that would bring more money than something that's absolutely needed or the need of the hour. So if it's cutting through sensitive areas, why do you want to give the clearance for something like
I
that?
think this is because it says if there is China involved, it will be the some kind of a trade route. It will mostly be some sort of goods that will be moved with the help of this particular route. Otherwise, they wouldn't build it. This has to be some kind of trade route because nothing really going on here in terms of tourism or anything like that. So if they're coming to sea, that means it will be a port here, and they want to be bringing in some kind of, I don't know, maybe wood or some other resources that they extract from the Amazon to the port. Um,
Yeah,
that
if you actually open the article, there are like a lot of photos with the route being shown, how they want to
Mhm.
connect across the
Yep.
land from Peru and Brazil.
Yeah.
But I think um, I don't know if it is the Chinese officials have just gotten like a contract because they're good at this, because they've made these before. We don't know if it's that, or if it is because China actually has a economic interest with them. It can be either way.
China has been supporting a lot of countries in development, developing new railways and things like that. And um, you know, that's that's the way they're planning to infiltrate the the countries.
Yeah, and I think
Giving
also
them
there's,
infrastructure, giving
yeah.
them money, and then saying, okay, we will extract all that is generated from this particular infrastructure or something like that.
Plus, I think there's like a big fight between US and China where both of them obviously are anti-environment in the best ways possible, worst ways possible. But they also want to capture or have more allies. So they are investing and they are reaching out to more and more countries and having their projects set
Yeah,
up
I mean, they're
or
the
having
world's
their
biggest
interests set up.
economies. They're the
Yeah.
world's two biggest economies. First is US and then is China.
Yeah, but then they're also like at loggerheads. So I think they're trying to like kind of they're in a race with each other of how many allies and how many countries and how many places they can secure. So it is a constant to and fro between them. So that is also one of the reasons that China is interested in investing in all these other countries, so that they can have this economic growth or economic boost against the US. So it's one of the ways that they're doing this, but all of this comes at the cost of the environment and not at the cost of anything else. I mean, I don't think China cares, the US cares, both of them don't care. And these Latin American countries that probably did care, now they've been shown like how much money they can get by making such kind of fruits. So now they do care.
Yeah, I mean, capital capitalism capitalism gets at you very quickly. The I mean, there's no country in the world that does not run on money. And you can just show people what money can buy you, the comfort that money can buy you, and it is not very difficult to convince people. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's really really concerning that, like, one, money is such a human concept, like, that it's something that only humans need to survive on this planet. And that becomes the most primary thing. Like, people kill each other for it, people fight with your own, siblings over it. All the problems in this world is, it starts with money and ends on money. So it's really, like, one of those things. I think the whole advent of money is what has caused the damage to environment.
I think some sort of money exists in some sort of goods exchange exists in nature as well. It's not a very uniquely human concept, but the level we have scaled it to, obviously that we have done with everything that nature gave us, or that is the natural way of life. We have just scaled it up to mammoth levels, and that is something we are very good at.
um Let me just share my screen so that I can talk about what was talked about earlier. So this is the the government's meeting for the country's railway line, and talking about it. But here they're talking about how much area between Peru and Brazil they would be entering into to make this railway. So if you can see, it's going right into the forest and right between these mountains. So the Andes Mountains all over here. Andes Mountains are also known for its wildlife, especially I think for the wild llamas and other animals there. So it's going all the way into Brazil, into the Amazonian rainforest. And then if we keep scrolling, it's basically showing one of the proposed routes, and the route is literally um, a river flowing through and near the houses. And if we go further down, this is what they want to eventually, I think, finish. So from Peru, from Chance, they wanted to go via Brazil into the forest, go even further, and then connect to the other side of, um, of Latin America. And the thing is, I don't know. Like, I would assume if you wanted to do like a cross country thing, like not a cross country thing, but a cross continent thing, I would assume that it tapers down below. Like, wouldn't that make more sense? I don't understand why they're doing it at the widest part possible by causing the maximum environmental damage.
I think it's a political choice. It's a political choice. The countries might not be interested, or there might not be any viable shipping routes, or there might not be any, all these different things that uh, shipping route or trading route is inspired or motivated by. Whatever be the reasons are not saving the planet.
That is true. So the road actually could be running through places like this, Ucayali in Peru, which is heavily forested and is beautiful how it looks. I mean, it's crazy that we don't see beauty in this, and we actually see beauty in destroying this. And they're saying that illegal activities can also take place because of all of these routes. And obviously, what Oops has just talked about, there is a Chansey megaport, and thus megaport has just opened, and this is what has strengthened the possibility of the railway construction. So this is the megaport from Chance, and I think that is how they want to transport it from one place to another. And I think if they transport it to the Brazil side of the port, then I think it helps them to transport, like have ships ready there with, and for countries closer to the Brazil side. So for
Yeah,
ships
which is
from
the
there,
Asian countries, including
of
China.
course, exactly. So I think that is why China is that interested in actually taking up this project and making it. But I honestly don't know, like why do we need to exploit more places? I still don't even understand the whole concept of I understand that, okay, we probably started with barter. We were like, okay, I will give you this, you give me this. When did it go to this extent that um, we import half of our things, or we import a lot of things, and or you export a lot of things? Why don't we just become self-reliant? I don't understand that concept. Like, there are certain things obviously probably your country can't produce, or cannot have, so you get them from other countries. But why can't you majorly produce most of the things?
I think this is what has unfortunately solved the global food crisis, because even up till about 100 years ago or 150 years ago, there the the major thing the world was worried about and every community was worried about was food. You know, there were regular famines and regular droughts that would occur, and the hunger of these European countries is what sort of gave birth to this capitalism. And I think the not I think, but there has been studies to say that, this capitalism was and is a byproduct of us trying to solve this food crisis, the global food crisis.
Yeah.
There,
Probably, it is probably what it started with, but what it has ended up with is very different to what it started out with. When it started out, there was like an absolute need, but now it's more, I don't know, like, you remember the whole Make in India drive that had started, like, let's make everything in India, then importing things. Most countries should do that. Like, I mean, not like India has made a lot of Make in India stuff. The drive was important. A few things have started. But across the world, also, I think that is what we need to be promoting, that, make more things internally and be more reliant on what grows internally than importing all of the fancy stuff.
yeah, there is actually a book by Lizzie Collingham, which is called The Hungry Empire: How Britain's Quest for Food Shaped the Modern World. So I think there is a small element that the humans have to be. I mean, India had that stuff figured out, centuries ago, and everyone was looking Indiaward, and every voyage that set sail from Europe was to find India, because the Indian merchants were so rich, and they were, you know, uh, selling and buying so much goods, um, especially selling, that everyone was perplexed and everyone wanted to go find India and try to control India, which eventually happened. But I think the European nations, they were very poor, very famined all the time. People were dying left, right, and center. Same with all over the world. India was the hub of that food production power and the global economic power as well. So I think we the world has to be thankful a little bit, because this food crisis and food problem has been solved for us. But the cost, unfortunately, I don't know how to think about this, because I don't want my fellow human beings to die because they're not getting food, which is what would happen if this food supply chain collapses. Now, and like, I don't know if countries are motivated enough or incentivized enough to cut this supply chain, or disrupt this supply chain, because there is huge vested interest in this, right? The soy the soy lobby, for example, the soy mafia, maybe, they soy and maize, corn, is the top two produced grains in the world, produced anything in the world. um, so there must be big lobbies behind it. So I don't know if they will be willing to, even if the countries want to, with I don't know if they would be willing to let go of this power and the soft power they exert over the entire world. So
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways I feel like agriculture was like the bane to society. Like till
yes, it
agriculture
has
did
been
not.
there has been extensive research that agriculture was the reason of all the modern problems.
Exactly. I mean, till that time, people were nomadic. They were hunter gatherers, and as soon as we started growing our own plants and growing our own food, we got stagnant in one place, and then we started exploiting and making these cities and towns and actually expanding our population. Till that time, I don't think we expanded our population, and that is also when God came in, because we needed something that unified such a huge population.
And
And I
we wanted to make things sacred, because other than making things sacred, so there are a few good books on this subject, on the modern civilization and how it formed. Now, when agriculture started, there was a very big problem of farmers um, running back. Like, when agriculture started, and there was huge amount of manual labor that needed to be done in order to achieve agriculture. That's when people were like, oh, this is bullshit. The hunter gatherer way of life was better. And they would just run away. The farmers would just run away. And that is why, that was the primary one of the primary reasons why walled cities, all the walls in the world, including the Great Wall of China, was built to keep those people in, so that people don't run away to the hunter gatherer way of life. And after a threshold, it was very difficult. Even if one farmer wanted to run away and live the hunter gatherer life, it was very difficult to convince the other people, because they had some securities that the state or the king or the landlord was providing, in terms of food, in terms of other things, that they wouldn't get if they went back to the hunter gatherer way of life. And
it sounds like that monkey experiment, right? Like
oh, absolutely.
when they used to zap the monkeys if they're going up the pole to get the banana. So
Yeah,
then they introduced new monkeys, and the new monkeys don't even know why they're not allowed to climb up the pole. So I think it's the same thing. Like we're all monkeys, but we're all monkeys to not for bananas but for money.
yeah.
Or
There's
yeah.
this book called Against the Grain by James C. Scott. Again, great read. It's it basically, explores the history of agriculture in mankind, and how it was the worst thing that ever happened to us. And wheat, the wheat grain in particular, wheat was introduced because it was easy to tax. Wheat was very easy to tax. That is why the wheat production of wheat is was encouraged. And right now, all the top produced grains, wheat, rice, maize, soy, these are all follow the same characteristics of the wheat. It stays above the ground, so the tax collector can come and look at it. It's not like a potato where it is underground and can stay underground for like 12 years or something like that, 5 to 10 years. So if the farmer just runs away, it is very difficult for the tax collector to go about and tax how many potatoes were grown. So wheat above the ground, very easy to tax by weight and things like that. And that is why these kinds of grain gain so much popularity in the world. Even though we can't digest wheat properly, takes a lot to digest wheat properly and things like that. So you have, um, you know, we ha- we know this for a fact that agriculture was very, very, very um,
Yeah.
counterproductive in sort of shaping how the all the banes of the modern world is.
Yeah, and I think one of the other books that I would suggest is Yuval Noah Harari's *Sapiens*, and *Sapiens* is widely popular, and it draws from when we actually started evolving all the way to the modern civilization and economy. So it's a great read, and it talks about how, and it's a great line. I think it says that man thinks that he tamed wheat, but wheat actually tamed man. So like, wheat was thirsty, so man made irrigation canals. Wheat was getting eaten by pesticides or by pests, so man came up with like pesticides. Wheat was having problem growing, so man had to come up with like fertilizer. So it was like the wheat kept demanding and the man kept providing. So it says that, like the wheat wasn't tamed by us. Like, we did not create the wheat that is today.
Hmm.
Like, the wheat actually commanded us to be created that way. Like, it made us work that hard, and we actually did that, even though we had the I wouldn't say the privilege, but we had the option of being hunter gatherers and actually having a more varied and diverse menu of food than the mundane or very selected food that we have today. Like, we grow certain things, and that is all you can eat.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is again being this railway is again motivated by something that is very similar, trade interests and things like that. And it is good to hear that there are local groups that are taking that stand and doing what is necessary to stop this. And there has been a stop, right? There has been a stop in the plans temporarily while assessments are being made. So hopefully we will keep an eye on the story, but hopefully it goes the way of the environment, it for the environment and not against the environment. That is the hope there.
Yeah, but honestly, with this railway and the way that the ports are placed, I do not think there is much that the government, or actually governments in this case,
In this
because there are,
case, yes.
so because it's Peru, Brazil, and China that are involved. So I think this is absolutely going to go ahead, even though it's going to wreak havoc. It's going to deforest a huge part of the mountains and the forests, especially Amazon. And it's sad, like, like we constantly talk about how the Amazon is really important. It's the lungs of the earth, all of that, and yet every second week, oops, and we come across some article of some kind of plundering going on in the Amazon. So it's so big that everyone wants to share. I think it's just this human tendency of thinking that, oh, if we just cut through some part of the Amazon, it's still going to survive. Nothing will happen to it. Let's just cut through this part. Let's cut through this part, and then we'll end up like Borneo, or places in Indonesia where there are no places left for these orangutans.
Yeah, it's like that story when the king asked for milk to be filled in the big tank. Everyone else thought that someone else will put in milk and let us put in some water. And in the morning, the only thing that was there in that tank was water and nothing else. So we think about the Amazon in that way. This is the big ocean, and if we take one glass of water from the ocean, nothing will happen to the ocean. But one day it will come that the ocean is completely dry, and um, you know we as people cease to exist.
Yeah. But as you guys know, obviously we come up, or we always come across these kind of sad news more than positive news. And there's not much we can do about it in the environment scope of things, because that is just how the world is working currently. um, but yeah, sadly, that is how things are going. Oops, do you want to take up the next topic once because I have to refresh? Okay, no, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, let's go to the next topic because I think we have only so much to say on this, unless you have to add something
Yes.
else. Oops.
No, that's we can move on.
Okay. Uh, yep. Okay. So we're going to be covering what we talked about, carbon venting. So, ancient carbon venting from lakes in the Congo Basin peatlands. A new study reveals that Congo Basin lakes are releasing ancient carbon, potentially impacting climate change calculations. Scientists
Mm.
previously believed lake carbon dioxide stemmed from recent plant decay. However, radiocarbon dating of water samples indicates a significant portion originates from peatlands formed over thousands of years. The Kuwait Central peatlands, larger than England, store approximately 30 billion metric tons of carbon accumulated due to slow decay in swampy conditions. This research suggests lakes act as chimneys, releasing this long sequestered carbon back into the atmosphere. Understanding this process is crucial for accurately assessing carbon cycling within these ecosystems and its effect on global climate. Further investigation is needed to quantify the extent of this ancient carbon release. So obviously, how we all know how all these fossil fuels were made. So they were that was also a lot of carbon that was pressed down, and it kept building on top of it, 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 and then because of the crushing and crushing and crushing of that carbon, it formed these what would you say, this petroleum and other products. I
Mm.
mean, we make the products, but that is how the fossil fuels were made. And this is similar to that, but not very similar because it is not. It even though it's taken like thousands of years and all, it is not the same process of how it is pressed down, and it is not the same amount of time that it took to make those fossil fuels. So in this case, also obviously the carbon has been pressed in, and it was never released. And now the lakes are acting as a chimney to release the carbon, which means the lakes that essentially never release carbon are now carbon emitters. So that is something that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about the increase in all these gases that are causing the earth to warm up.
Yeah, I think there is a good paper backing this study up. And yeah, it's basically uh, it has to be something we have done, right? It will be something that we have done to actually trigger this process, or like this is a natural process, but we have speeded things up. um, we can use this in our to our benefits, as in, like, because it is a storehouse of carbon, we can use it as the thing that it is, a storehouse for carbon. And all the excess carbon that we are producing, we can um, you know make sure that these peatlands absorb it, basically. But there is a limit to everything. Like, we can't be like, we will keep on producing endless carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and things like that, and just expect everything to be dandy the next day. uh yeah.
Yeah, that is true. And I think if I just 1 second, let me just share this on the screen so I can explain the article and what exactly is happening.
Mm,
Yeah, so on my screen now, this is what the article is obviously called. And if we go down, it's basically showing the mixing of two rivers. And it says that water draining forested landscapes meets water draining savanna landscapes at this confluence between the Fimi and Kasai rivers in the DRC. The reddish color
mm,
of the Kasai River It originates from the iron oxides associated with clay of suspended sediments, which are more predominant in the savanna compared to the forest. The much darker color, which drains Lake Mai-Dombe, stems from organic materials that leach from leaves and soils into the water. So this is
Mm,
the two different colors, and they're very distinct because of what material is going into it. This is the scientist on the study. Scientist Pengzi gets ready for another day of sampling. Most locations are almost impossible to reach by land. Therefore, small dinghy boats were used to access the remote study sites in the Kasai River
mm,
Basin. So, this is a small boat, as you can see. This is a device that they were lowering to get samples from the depth. And what they would do is they would lower it to a desired depth, and then a manual trigger is released, which are, I think, the small speaker kind of things you're seeing on the side. They shut and they make the, like the clamps come down, and then they pull it back up so that they have the water samples from the depths, because that is where I think most of the carbon is actually being stored.
mm.
And it talks about how there are you know um, massive water lakes there. So Maidombe that we saw above, and Lake Tumba, and high concentrations of organic matter, and making them black water lakes. And they're saying that it may be like the carbon can be dated between 2000 to 3,500 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, and this is an amazing way of showing. So this is the forest, this is the lake. There is aerobic respiration, and then there is aerobic respiration under the soil, and then the soil gets it gets and the soil leaches into the lake, and then it produces and it leaves the carbon dioxide either into the air, or it's leaving it through the rivers. So this is how it's being transported.
Yeah. At its current state, this obviously is a problem because, well, we don't need any more carbon in our um, environment. You know, um,
Yeah.
we do not need any more carbon in the environment. But
But that is how it is now. So sadly, like even these natural processes that have to occur, so it is very natural for these peatlands to store the carbon and release them slowly. But we will be holding them accountable as well, just because there are environmental, what would you call them, discrepancies happening elsewhere.
mm, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a very interesting story to know that, like the ancient carbon wetlands are slowly releasing the carbon. So they store the carbon and then they release it. I wonder if somehow we can tap into that carbon and use it for something like, but not at the cost of, again, disturbing the environment that is there. But if there was some way to use it as an energy source, if there was some way to use it as some other source, it might actually be useful because it's naturally produced. But if that's not a case, then obviously this is more of a interesting fact, because this is still in really remote areas that this is happening. So probably if it's not something that we can use, that helps the environment and the people, that should just stay undisturbed. We should focus on other areas where we can actually reduce our carbon outflow.
mm, yeah. It will be an interesting conversation to have if we can talk to the scientist that is sort of researching the paper. It would be an interesting conversation to have with them. So we'll try to get them on board. But other than that, I think yeah, there's not much more we can say about this topic.
Yeah, that is true. Um, so let's move on to the next one. Ups.
Cool. I will do the shorter story first. I was just watching um, the latest. um, Avatar movie, and it explores Avatar in general has explored the water from the last one, the water and the whale-like creatures that live in that, you know, alien planet's water, very much as well. So this is a story which sort of connects with me, particularly today, because I was watching that movie right before coming live here. But this is a story from National Geographic. It says scientists recorded a sperm whale birth up close for the first time. They discovered something extraordinary. Recent research has revealed remarkable details about sperm whale births, previously rarely observed. Scientists with Project SETI witnessed and recorded a sperm whale labor off Dominica in July 2023, providing the first quantifiable evidence of birth assistance in a non primate species. The footage shows aunties and other family members actively supporting the mother during labor and immediately after, acting as midwives. These whales formed a protective circle, vocalized frequently, and helped keep the newborn afloat to breathe. This collaborative behavior highlights the complex social structure and communication within sperm whale families, known as units. The findings underscore the emotional and social significance of birth within the species. So I think this story I wanted to share also because I think for some reason we have lost the awe that we have of nature. Like nature is wonderful and beautiful, and we have lost that awe factor in nature, uh, from nature. We are so, I guess, caught up in the day to days of our lives that we have lost that. So, wanted to share this quick story. I will just share my screen and just share the video that goes along with it. I'll just try to play it. I don't know why it's not playing. Uh, but yeah, so this sort of research also helps with restoring that awe factor in nature, and like the curiosity that we have. Look at this, like how many females have gathered there, and individually labeled as well. How many females have gathered there to assist and you know help with the birth of this one calf. The juvenile females are there, the matriarch is there, the grandmother basically, and the aunts are there, you know, half sisters are there, everyone is there. It's almost, it's a human phenomenon almost. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and
beautiful, beautiful to observe.
I think oops, it's a lot to do with also single births. Like I think with animals that have only one baby, it's a lot about that baby takes so much, like it needs so much care, and it needs a lot of being with that kid or with that baby for a few years till the baby is able to survive on its own. So I think it's a very like the same like the human thing. I think it's with the whales, so it needs like a village to survive. So I think it's
Mm,
similar with the whales because they have only one baby at a time.
mm.
And we've seen this even with
I think
humpback
also
whales.
it's something to do with the energy required to produce a baby, because human, as well as whales, as well as any chimpanzee species, you know, um, need a lot of energy to produce this baby, to produce this particular child, and that means that it is. evolutionarily makes sense to invest a lot of time and energy into that particular baby. I don't know if we can call whales a precocial species, but they come
No.
pretty prepared into the world, right?
They do, but I think, see, so they, like, if the mom picks them up, they kind of pick them up on their head and take them up to the surface. At least that's what the humpback whales do, so that they can get their first breath, and then the moms stay with the babies in the shallow so that they can keep going and breathing, because the moms can breathe every 20 to 25 minutes, but the babies need to breathe every couple of minutes, so it can be 3 to 5 minutes, which is why they're just below the surface always. And there are these areas like where warmer waters where the mums come, and calmer waters as well, which is very beneficial for the baby to grow. But it's a full term process. I think the whales babies stay with them till they're juveniles and even longer, and then once they go back to Antarctica, and then they split and then they survive. So I think it's like a full time job. So like when they're little kids, like they're feeding on the mom, just like human babies are feeding on mom, and they're getting all the training and the nutrients and the supply. Even though they're precocious, I think they need their mother for a long time. It's similar to, I think, the cat species as well. Like in the wild, the tigers, like the kids would stay with them for like 2 years before
Because
they.
there's a lot of skills that needs to be imparted, like how to hunt, how to stalk, how to do all the feeding and things like that. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think that is where it comes in. It's very weird though, but like with domestic cats, they're split at the same time. I think that domestic dogs are split from their mums like 8 weeks to 12 weeks maximum, and but in the wild, for cats, the babies stay with them for a couple of years.
yeah, yeah. So that was that. Very cool.
Video.
Yeah, cool research and some video to go along with it.
Yep. Okay.
Cool.
Let's jump to the next topic. Um, so this one is again a short story, but it says Wily coyote. Urban canines take more risks compared with rural ones, a study finds. A new study reveals urban coyotes across the US are bolder and less fearful of new stimuli than their rural counterparts. Researchers at 16 paired sites compared coyote reactions to unfamiliar objects, finding city coyotes consistently showed less apprehension. This isn't linked to increased aggression, but rather a reduced fear of the unexpected, likely due to less harassment in urban environment. The
Mm,
study, involving 623 stations, expands on previous observations of coyote behavior as they increasingly populate cities due to fewer predators and ample food sources. Researchers believe this behavioral gap may extend to other species, making coyotes a valuable study system for understanding urban wildlife adaptation. Uh, and I think this probably might be true for a lot of other animals as well that are found in the urban areas and in the rural ones. Like, even you remember that story that I told you, that even when tigers relocated, if tigers come from like core areas or come from forests where there are no safaris, these tigers are really shy. They don't understand why, or they're really scared of the sounds of the vehicles because they've not heard that. But a tiger that was born in a jungle where the safaris happen every day, they're more immune to it. And so they would come close to the vehicle and they would check out the vehicle and they would walk around the vehicle, knowing that the vehicle is not a threat to them. So this is, I think, one of those classic examples of growing up with probably more stimuli and more risk factors. So that is why you're less apprehensive.
mm. Yeah, I think this is true of every kind of urban wildlife that exists. We have jackals in a few cities in India. We have foxes. that live in the streets of London. There we then we have coyotes that is living in certain areas in the United States. So raccoons, Canada and United States, all over the place. Um, Hedgehogs. We did a story on hedgehog highways and how they navigate through the gardens, and things like that. So yeah, I think it is true of every urban wildlife. They are adapting, and I think a lot of the Planet Earth type series in recent times have had a segment or an episode dedicated to urban wildlife and how wildlife is sort of making way. There are I think one of the Asian, maybe it's Singapore. There are like otters that sort of
Yeah.
navigate through, cross roads at, you know, zebra crossings and things like that. And yeah, it's amazing how much wildlife can adapt. And actually, they enjoy the otters in, I think it is Singapore. They enjoy like a bath or swim in the fountains and things like that.
Yeah, they're saying how the experiment was done, how the study was done to figure out if urban coyotes were less scared of newer stimuli, was that they set up camera trap positions with remote cameras triggered by any warm bodied animal moving in front of it. At half of those sites, they built structures with four posts and some string, a novel object that was unfamiliar to the coyotes. Inside the little structure, they placed a heaping teaspoon of meat bait and a tab of scent to attract the animals. The western urban coyotes spent about 4 seconds more near the bait area than the rural counterparts. The researchers said the behavioral gap is probably a product of less fear of harassment in cities, whereas recreational hunting is typically prohibited and coyotes face fewer direct threats from humans. So, in this case, the harassment doesn't mean actual harassment, it basically means that you have lesser predators and lesser
Yeah.
things to fear of. So, in the urban setting, there are lesser, what would you say, things that the coyotes are not scared of and they can be more free. So that is why they don't care or they're not scared. But the rural ones were scared of this object as well and they just checked it out and they quickly left because they were not sure of what it was. But the urban coyotes spent more time checking what was the object.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is great that these animals are, probably every animal would need to adapt to the human environment in some shape or form, or in some way, because otherwise, it will become increasingly more difficult to, I don't know, to survive in this world, unless, because there is no signs of rewilding, as we call it, that's going on. It's only encroachment, encroachment, encroachment. So yeah, if
Yeah,
we
and because of the encroachment obviously these coyotes are found in urban cities now, and obviously for them, for the coyotes also, they prefer the cities because I think it's easier for them to survive there.
yeah,
So not in terms of food but in terms of the risks that come with living in a jungle. So and they're really adaptable, so they're like pigeons in the city. So once they come into the city, they just go about being a coyote and don't pay attention to the humans and go about their own way, and they're okay. Like they just to a city life just as easily as they were inside a forest. So that is, I mean, that is something amazing that their nature is, because not all animals can do it. Like not animals can all animals cannot adapt from the wild to a city life, but coyotes are one of those animals. They also say that like the biggest question to Quinn, the researcher, is that whether hazing, making coyotes uncomfortable around humans, if it actually works. So it involves being big, bold, and loud, using actions like shouting, waving arms, or using noisemakers until the animal completely leaves the area. But it's not clear at all if it's effective, because it's a very individual trait. So you could actually haze a coyote and it could just look at you, and if it had a middle finger, it would essentially raise it, is what she says. Or you could raise a coyote and it could put its tail between its legs and not look back. So it comes down to the individual animal.
Are
Like,
coyotes dangerous to humans? Well, they're dogs essentially, right?
they are,
They're
I mean,
wild.
they're like the wolf, kind of the wolf family, kind of, let's say. I think it's just, I
No,
think they're
not
more.
even wolf family. They're dogs.
No, I don't think they're like completely related to
Completely
dogs.
dogs, like
Something.
African painted dogs.
They're more, I think, related to the wolves, aren't they?
I don't think so.
I think it's also called they're saying it's also called the American jackal or the prairie wolf or the brush wolf. So I think either they're called wolves. Oh, but it does say that it is native to North America and it is smaller than its close relative, the gray wolf, and slightly smaller than the closely related eastern wolf and red wolf. So they are related to wolves more than they're
Okay,
related to dogs.
but
Yeah.
are they dangerous to humans?
I don't think so, because they're not, it's much like the foxes in London. They just
I mean, foxes
keep
are
into
very
themselves.
small creatures.
They are, but I mean, they're not bringing. I mean, they're still wild, right? They're still wild. If you go really close to the fox and try to harass it, probably it would bite you. But the foxes are keeping to
No, no, but
themselves.
that is not being dangerous to humans. That is just being a nuisance to humans. That is not dangerous. Like
It's
it's not
similar
life
with the
threatening.
coyotes. In this case, they're just
No,
saying that the
like
coyotes.
if you are faced with a wolf, the wolf can kill you.
But even with wolves and dogs and bears and a lot of other animals, it is how you approach them and
No,
how
no, no, no.
much
I'm not saying that. Are they capable of killing us or not? I'm asking that question.
that I
A
don't
wolf
know.
is capable of killing us. A fox is not. A dog, maybe a huge dog is, but a small dog maybe not. On the spot, maybe its bite can cause some infections or something like that. But on the spot, they're not able to kill us. We can fight with them and get it away. But a bear or a wolf, they can kill us. Or a mountain lion, they can kill us. We can't
I
have
I
no
think with
defenses.
with foxes, probably if it's a singular fox, no. If it's like a pack of foxes, yes, they could probably kill you if they
I
wanted
don't
to.
think so.
But it actually depends, because usually foxes are found solitary in urban settings, and
Yeah.
yeah, and they're usually scared because you look way bigger than them. With the coyotes, I just know that they're really, really, really famous for the Roadrunner. You remember the
Oh yeah.
cartoon? What was it called? Where the Roadrunner keeps running and the coyote can never
It
catch
was
it.
called Roadrunner.
It was just called Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is where coyotes got famous from. In the article, it just says that coyotes are the diet is 20% domestic cats apparently. So when
Hmm.
they're in the cities, they're eating cats. So they can be
Good
stray
good
cats. They can be.
riddance. Like
Uh,
there is something controlling the domestic cat population.
I don't. Yeah, but I think these might be the stray cats because they're out and about.
I
Um,
mean, domesticated cats.
yeah, but then we honestly do not know with after an amount of time, when maybe there are no more cats, what do they start doing? So yeah,
Hmm.
at this point of time, they aren't really
Very, very much
directly.
doubt it. Look, a species which has got the protection of humans, it's very difficult to make that species extinct. And the species which has not got that protection, it is very hard to keep that species alive.
Yeah, but I think with these coyotes, I think it's more like we have to see with time if they get bolder and bolder. But for now, they just want to roam around the streets and just do their own thing and leave.
Which is fine. Which is fine. I think there needs to be some sort of control or some sort of things that some sort of a plan. I guess I don't know what the scientists are thinking, but some sort of plans to control this if it gets out of hand. Because if it harms even one human, then that whole rhetoric of kill them and remove them will start. So if there is a scientific solution to all this, we must take early action, get them out of the cities even if they're not causing any problems, because if they start causing problems, then everyone all the fates of all the coyotes will then lie on some government babu's hand.
That is true, but we need to wait and see what happens, because obviously, with coyotes, with foxes, with a lot of animals now, there are like urban and rural populations because of the fact that there is so much poaching into their areas that is happening. So we're encroaching more and more and more areas. So they're left with no choice but to kind of coexist with us. And it's not just coyotes, but it's also like leopards and other species that have to coexist, because there is no other way of existing if you're a species that does adapt to the urban living.
Right, right. Well, speaking of cats and leopards, the next story comes from Mongobe again, and it's very interestingly headlined called "Lab Made Jaguar." Is cloning a solution to extinction? Again, see how we're trying to have private solutions, or man-made solutions to environmental and existing threats. From the title, you can imagine where the story is going. But Brazilian scientists in Reprocon are working to clone jaguars, aiming to prevent the species' extinction due to habitat loss and dwindling genetic diversity. With populations in some areas below 250, jaguars face threats from inbreeding, leading them to health issues and vulnerability. Again, we extensively talked about why inbreeding and a shrinking gene pool is a problem in a previous episode as well. But it is a huge problem. Researchers are collecting genetic material to utilize assisted reproductive technologies, specifically cloning, to bolster the gene pool. However, the project sparks a debate, mirroring controversies surrounding de extinction efforts like the Dar Wolf project. The core question remains: can doing cloning effectively save endangered species? Mongabe explores this complex issues and feasibility and things like that. Yeah, it's a tough decision to make. Um, Animals, as much as we would like them to be, are not like plants. Plants literally clone themselves when they reproduce. Animals are not like that. So it is a much more complex organism compared to plant in terms of how the genetic work and how the development of that organism works. Um, Here, I can still see a benefit of cloning because the niche exists, the animal still exists, and you can make some changes to the genetic material and you know um, clone a few things. There is, of course, the ethical, moral, and environmental concerns, but I can kind of see the cloning making sense, but nobody will know how this will impact basically um, the the environment and the jaguars that it will interact with. These clone jaguars will ultimately interact with the truly wild jaguars, and I don't know. And a discussion question here also is is it a viable solution? It prevent extinction, or is it a distraction the government and the scientists are using to distract us from the main issues, that is climate, that is habitat loss and encroachment and climate change and things like that.
Yeah, and I think with the jaguars, one of the main problems is that when they are confined to fragmented habitats, then they're in small isolated groups, which means that it can lead to inbreeding, because you're mating
Mm,
close relatives instead of being able to walk across large landscapes. And this is
Mm.
obviously happening because of us. They have fragmented habitats only because we are encroaching into more and more areas. So this inbreeding is reducing the genetic diversity, and also really, it's leading to malformations, miscarriages, increased vulnerability to disease and other problems. So which is why they're bringing up this cloning process, because they are like, if they're able to clone instead of just mate in closed areas, then probably this is a more viable solution, because it would keep the genetic line and it would keep the healthy genes alive. But this is again a band-aid problem. It's just putting a band-aid on the fact that there are fragmented habitats. So instead of trying to like kind of maybe like build canopies or bridges or underpasses or whatever it is, so the fragmented habitats can be somehow linked to each other, they are trying to clone and use that money instead of trying to actually use money to get the existing jaguars to move around more.
Yeah, I think because this, I imagine, will take a huge amount of money, as kind of displayed by the Darwolf project, and all the spending that is being done by colossal biosciences to do all these de-extinctions, as they call it. They're not de-extinctions, don't be fooled by it. But yeah, a huge amount of money goes in, and I don't see any worse use of that money than to just clone jaguars. Um, you know,
Yeah,
and
and plus,
if after all those points that you mentioned, trying to join the habitats, which will not happen if we put that effort in, nature would bounce back. The natural world has that resilience to bounce back. But if for some reason it does not work out even after us, then I think that this is like a last, you know this is another 20 years or 50 years into the future.
yeah, and plus, I think the problem is we do not know how the cloned animals would behave. Like if they would have different sets of issues, trying
They will.
to survive in the wild. We do not know what kind of skill set that they come with, what kind of training they would need. We do not know what kind of again diseases that they might spread, where if they are mating with the other
I mean, cloned animals will be sterile. They can't mate with anybody.
No, no, no. Dolly the sheep that was cloned, it actually had how many? Six lambs before it died. So Dolly the sheep, which was actually, it wasn't the first animal to be cloned, but it was just the most famous animal to be cloned, I think,
Okay.
because it was cloned from an adult cell. And then Dolly lived her entire life at the institute itself, and she was mated with rams. She had six babies. Then she had progressive lung disease and arthritis, and she died, or she was euthanized at 6.5 years because of the progressive disease. Uh,
Oh,
they do say that the sheep's, like the breed that Dolly was, they could live up to 11 or 12 years, but Dolly lived only 6.5 years. But they're saying that because of the lung cancer, which is very common in their species, it died. So it is not because of cloning. So obviously, there wasn't a lot of cloning, and I think after this it wasn't followed through to see what uh, things can pass on in a clone. But even with clone animals, they can reproduce, they can mate, they can have a normal
okay.
life. Yeah. So it's just that we need to know if in some way cloning causes problems that do not let them survive to the same level as other healthy individuals in the wild do.
Mm, yeah. Um, yeah. It is a difficult question to answer. We, of course, we do not have the answer to the question, and neither do these scientists. I don't think they have the right answer. They're just trying something. Science is for that. And yeah, I can understand, in the interest of science, this is fine. But this cannot become a viable solution, and this cannot become the de facto solution for these kinds of issues, because The genetic diversity evolution creates and nature creates, we can never replicate that. And if we are cloning, okay, we are only cloning the healthy genes and things like that, so diseases don't get affected. Maybe we are tweaking some genes to make sure they're more resilient towards that, towards some particular diseases or things like that. But at the end of the day, we are trying to play, mother nature. And um, again, as I said, like, if all the things Meghna mentioned, trying to build bridges, trying to connect habitats, trying to stop the encroachment, everything did not work out. Only after that we could say, okay, we tried everything, or most of the things, most of the uh, impactful things that we thought, and it did not work out. Now this is the only way left. This cannot be the de facto or the first thing we try.
That is true, but also there's this very interesting thing that is, talked about in the Wikipedia article about Dolly. It says that there were 277 attempts to clone a sheep, and Dolly was the only lamb that survived to adulthood. So 277 attempts. But then the team that created Dolly announced that the technique might never be sufficiently efficient for use in humans. But in 2014, Chinese scientists were reported to have 70 to 80% success rates cloning pigs. And in 2016, Swarm Biotech was producing 500 cloned embryos a day, and another Korean commercial pet cloning company called Wyogen. And the firm charges $50,000 US dollars to clone a dog, and 30,000 US dollars to clone a cat, and 85,000 US dollars to clone a horse, showing that the cloning
Hmm.
economy is getting more popular, which means that you can actually take your own dog or your own cat and get a cloned version and bring it back home if you have enough money. A little
Hmm.
concerning for sure.
Yeah, I think I saw this story a couple of either last week or the week before. Um, you can clone your pets now, clone your loved pets now. Hmm.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, how that works out, but I think cloning may have its uses in preserving endangered species, but we do not. I don't think jaguars are at the level that we need to start cloning. We need to start saving, and we need to start seeing if we can increase their population somehow. Because when the populations fall, there are obviously measures that you can take. Like even in India with the Project Tiger, the tigers had come down to I think 1,400, and now it's above 3,000. That is only because of very directed efforts in trying to save the tigers. So I think if there are directed efforts to save the jaguars, we might not need such kind of expensive processes and such kind of unnatural processes. We can just have the jaguars mating naturally and keep increasing.
Mm, mm. Yeah, we'll follow this story as we are doing with the colossal stories that emerge from time to time. Um, yeah, this is also a very big media performance as well. Like, oh, look at this, what we can do. Because I'm sure, being a private company, which I very much believe it is, they would need some investors to invest in this dream of theirs, or this vision of theirs, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm actually really happy that humans can't clone themselves by giving money because I mean, we have enough people. We don't want to have double of our population. And I honestly don't think that anybody loves themselves that much that they want to uh, an exact
You
copy.
never know. You never know.
Would you be that
I mean,
obsessed that
not
you would
me,
want? No, I mean
not me,
any
but there are people in the world like that.
who are that obsessed that they would want like a
Why?
talking replica of yourself. Like I mean,
Why would?
I absolutely love myself, but I don't think I want to be looking at myself and talking to myself like a different
Look,
person that
obviously, you
just.
won't clone yourself when you are alive. You would only clone yourself after you're dead,
Why would you want to clone yourself after you're dead?
so you can live on forever.
But that's not the same person.
That is a fantasy that humans have.
It's from your cell. That doesn't mean that it has the same brain and same memories and same everything.
No, we will figure that out.
Yeah.
How to transfer the brains, or there has been heart surgeries and brain surgeries trying to transplant the brain, because brain is alive for certain amount of time after the body is dead, unless the brain dies first, the brain death as we call it. um so yeah, we will figure that out. Well,
Yeah.
because that is why, like, why do we want to clone sheep and why do we want to experiment on these things? Because ultimately our ambition is to do that on ourselves, getting closer and closer. Someday there will be a study approved to clone chimp. And
Yeah, I mean, there are already gene edited monkeys, and there are
Mhm.
cloned monkeys that have been done. I think in 2019.
Yep.
So, and that was done so that they wanted to study like several medical diseases or something. So I think this is one way to bypass the medical screening as well, like the screening of no animals were harmed or something. So I think they you could make cloned animals and then
Mhm.
say that we have to keep them in the lab because they're cloned, and then you can run experiments on them. It might be one way of doing it easily, but if they've reached monkeys, I think it's not a far way away that it would reach humans. And the amount of ridiculous things we're doing, I wouldn't be surprised if this was also something that was sold in the market.
Yeah, it will be something that is sold in the market. Think about it. You are eliminating the reproductive process, so there is no need for um, women anymore to carry a baby for 9 months. You can just create a clone of yourself, and that could be your son or daughter or whatever.
No, that just sounds very creepy. I don't want to.
They
I
will have
don't
a
want to
different
be.
brain.
You want to be
I
looking at
mean, if having
yourself
a
and
twin is not creepy, if having a twin is not creepy, then how can having a clone be creepy? If they will have a different brain.
no, having a twin is not like, I mean, you don't look at your twin and go like, oh, you're like my son or daughter, right? Like that is just creepy that you look at someone that just looks like you and then you call them your son or daughter.
We will invent something new, some new relationship.
I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I would not want that. Even if I'm dying, I would not want to be cloned.
No,
But
because uh, there can be a person who wants, you know, something similar to a kid with their own genetics, but doesn't want to go through that process of, you know,
I
finding
don't know.
a
I don't think
partner,
so
having a kid.
because cloning doesn't work like that. Like if you're a grown adult, then I think the adult cell wouldn't convert to a baby cell. So like human babies, if they're cloned, then I think the babies can create a baby, and the adults will create an adult. That is how
What
cloning
do you
works.
mean? How? Because the cell has to gestate in some womb. It's
Not
not
that
gestating
way.
in a test tube.
Not that way. Not that way. What I'm saying is that when Dolly was cloned, she was a
Huh.
6-year-old sheep, and the cloned sheep that they made was also 6 years old. It didn't. It wasn't. What do you say? I don't know. You're saying it grew up from a baby,
Yes.
but it had the adult cells in it.
No, you're thinking about cloning wrong. Maybe they had the adult cells. It is not something that is grown in a test tube like a sci-fi movie. You just blast with some lasers and then another copy is created. It is like, like you read. It is an embryo that is planted in another female sheep's womb, and they give birth to a clone.
Yeah,
Clone is basically something that is genetically identical, nothing
but
else.
it does say that Dolly, the sheep, uh, she could have died earlier because she was born with a genetic age of 6 years, the same age
Hmm,
as the sheep from which she was cloned.
yeah,
So the
that
genetic
that is
age
possible.
of the genetic age of that embryo starts from 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for you also, if you are cloning, like you're not really ending up with a baby, you're ending up with something that
No,
has
no,
a
it will
genetic.
look like a baby.
Yes, but the
Eh,
genetic imprint is from an adult.
yeah, like the boss baby.
I honestly don't know if that's how it's going to be, but yeah, I mean, it boggles my mind that there's so much lab made stuff happening these days, and we're reliant on lab made stuff than we're reliant on, I don't know, just the natural world and natural stuff that still exists.
Yeah, I just went to Reprocon's website, and their whole marketing agenda is this. I just share my screen. Their marketing agenda is reproduction for conservation. That they're saying, um, you know, this is the angle that they're trying to sell, basically, to their investors, I guess. And Jaguars obviously is uh, the the crown jewel right now with them.
Yeah, it's their model for the
Yeah,
calendar kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think.
Yeah, I think that's what they'll have to market it as. Otherwise, nobody would actually be interested.
Mm,
That is the only way that the investors or the public would be interested. That, oh, they're trying to save the jaguars. They're not just doing a stupid experiment. And that is what is selling, I think,
I
now.
mean, you never know what billionaires are interested in. Colossal is getting funded, so they are clearly interested in that. It has no value, no conservation value, absolutely no conservation value.
I
So
think the thing is that they
if you
want.
give an idiot a bunch of money, you know, you can't predict what that idiot will do with it. So don't give an idiot your money.
But I think it's part of what you were saying, that maybe the billionaires are interested because then, at some point of time, if the cloning reaches humans, they can clone themselves, and then their money keeps getting
100%.
passed from
100%.
from themselves to themselves to themselves. So then,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't go to their kids or anyone else. It just stays with cloned versions of them.
Yeah. That is the nefarious plan. Yeah, absolutely. Something like, again, we are saying this semi jokingly, but it is 100%. I'm quite confident that this kind of a, utopian out of the world plan is going through, some or maybe all billionaires' minds.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we're gonna skip to the next topic now.
Mm-hmm.
It says, with high seas treaty in place, West African countries plan for protected area. So we obviously do like to end on a positive news, and this, I think, is one of the positive news that we've come across. West African nations are collaborating to create a high seas marine protected area beyond their national waters, spurred by the recent High Seas Treaty. The proposed MPA marine protected area focuses on the biologically rich convergence zone of the Canary and Guinea currents. Spanning from Senegal to Nigeria, this biodiversity hotspot faces threats from industrial fishing, plastic pollution, and potential deep sea mining. Led by ECOWAS, the proposal will be considered at the first conference of parties for the High Seas Treaty within the next year. The treaty, formerly known as the BBNJ Accord, enables the establishment of MPAs in international waters, but operational
Mm-hmm.
mechanisms are still developing. Protecting this unexplored region is crucial due to its ecological significance and vulnerability to unregulated activities. And this is positive because a lot of nations are coming together, and they're collectively saying that they do want to protect an area in the ocean that is beyond their national waters. So they're still trying to figure out how to uh, patrol, how to get that machinery going, that it would be a protected area, because right now at this point of time it is not. But this gives us hope, right, that there are countries that are looking to protect. So if there is a high sea treaty here that can be enforced, then probably, if this is successful, then high sea treaties can be amped up for other countries worldwide, because that was our discussion question. Like, can high sea treaties be an example for other countries worldwide to step up for ocean conservation? And I think the answer is yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, I think it is great, and I think there has been a lot of talks about this in the social media social medias as well. You remember the National Geographic Explorers or something with all the celebrities that we looked at a couple weeks ago, or last week?
Yeah, apparently it's for the environment or something, right?
Yes, apparently it's for the environment, and I think one of those spokesperson was as was coming on the Nat Geo social media page, the Instagram page or TikTok, somewhere I saw, and they were talking about this high seas treaty. So it has sort of stirred the minds of some, millionaires and rich people as well. And I think, well, that is not a bad way to do it. Like, you get these people involved, so they have much wider reach. That is also a good way to sort of communicate things. And
Yeah, if their head is in the right place, like, because I mean, they're also, a lot of them were just celebrities that were never involved in conservation or the environment to begin with. But if they
No,
truly care,
even if they aren't, I'm saying, even if they aren't, if we can just get them to say the things we want them to say for a specific period, like an advertisement.
yeah, I think the mass will follow then.
Yeah,
But obviously,
exactly.
it would help more if they also believed in it than just being a
Yeah,
puppet, because
definitely. That
they
is the
have,
best case.
yeah, because they have to act anyway, like otherwise. But if
Yeah.
in this way they actually spoke about something that they really cared about, then it would be great, because something like the high seas treaty which is in place, we need more of that. Like, we don't need more of the deep sea mining and the deep sea drilling, and killing more animals, and cutting through forests. We've done enough of that. Like, I mean, 8 billion of us are surviving on what is already available. We, obviously, not everyone is surviving in the most posh manner. Some people have more money, some have less money, but everyone is surviving. There's enough to go around at this moment. We do not need to keep plundering our nature and environment to the zone or to the limit that there is no point of return back.
Yeah. Yeah, that is what is happening. That is what the way we are going. Like, we are saying, we will not stop doing anything. We will not stop polluting. We will not stop flying in our private jets to
Get a cake.
get a cake. Climate criminals. We will not stop being climate criminals. But we will grab all this land. We will do all these carbon credits and carbon peatlands. We will try to capitalize on them and things like that, to just make sure that we can live all the rich people comfortable lives.
Yeah. But I think this is a great new start. Like, it is a great start that at least there is a high seas treaty that
I think there is some trouble at Meghna's end in terms of the connection, but I think, yeah, as Meghna was saying, like, it is a great thing that um, that has happened and is happening. Um, Again, like, as we said, like, even if these people are you know just doing an ad for some reason, just doing an ad, that is enough at this point, because these people have um, you know far reaching.
with life, that they spill into the non-protected areas as well, which is crazy. Like, like, you just give this area a few years to recover, and you would see how much it teems with life. So that is what we need to
Mm,
keep doing with a lot of places instead of just plundering places.
mm. Did you realize, Meghna, that you were disconnected
No, I did not.
for the
Did not.
last
Was it?
20 seconds or 30 seconds or so?
Oh shit, was I? So I just talking to myself then?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
But
man.
anyway, but that's good. That's good. I mean, that's good. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
I think if we can have these high sea treaties in more places and actually protect the areas, we need more of that, because we need marine
Mm,
protected areas to be teeming with life. And then if they're teeming with life and they spill over to non-marine protected areas, We can protect more and more areas so that there's more life. We need to give the ocean a rest as well. We need to give the land a rest. Like, we need to just use what is there and start living within our capacity, then start and stop being as greedy as we are. Like, we just want to keep plunging and plunging and plunging, but there needs to be a limit to it.
100%. 100%. Absolutely agree. Um, cool.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to kind of start to wrap up the
Absolutely.
show, unless you want to do something like really tiny, some new species or something that you want to go over.
Um, no, I think,
We can do one really quick one.
yeah, do it.
Wait, am I still disconnected? No.
No, no, you
Uh,
are connected.
okay. Um, Let me just. Uh, uh, uh. Okay. So there is something called. It's called striking it licky. A rare tongue-shaped fungus has been found for the first time in UK. Uh, it has been discovered for the first time in the UK at Kingley Vale National Nature Reserve in West Sussex. This marks only the second recorded sighting of it in Europe, highlighting the ecological importance of England's reserves. Amateur mycologist Liz Frost identified the fungus in December, noting its distinguished cyan bluish base, the origin of its name. The delicate fungus measuring 45 to 55 mm, called Microglossum cyanobasis, blue-based earth tongue, resembles a small tongue emerging from the ground. Experts believe earth tongues indicate high-quality habitats, emphasizing the need for fungal network protection. This discovery underscores the value of continued ecological observation and the biodiversity found within protected areas. I'm just going to very quickly share the photo of this tongue based fungus.
Mm,
It does look very much like a tongue, so let me just share the screen. And this is what it looks like.
mm,
So, yeah, so like the left one looks more like a snake, but the right one definitely looks like a tongue.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's quite crazy that something can look that similar to a human tongue, and actually nice that we kind of, I think, naming it like a tongue or calling it earth tongues. Great that it has ecological significance. Great that it is a indicator. So we should be protecting such kind of species.
yeah. And I think we have said this every time we cover new species discovery, that this is something very important. So we get a fuller picture of the ecosystem that we are coexisting with, and also we get a picture of what are the different kinds of species that actually need that protection. um, if we do not know about all the species when we make the conservation plans, we might be missing some of these species, and which is not ideal, obviously. So that's why, um, this is one of the many reasons why we should continuously try and find new species, try and, yeah,
Yeah.
do the discoveries.
Yep. And I think with that short article, we have to end our show here. We're going to be wrapping up. So, as usual, it's my message to you guys. If you are not aware, then I think you should read up about the God Squad. You should read up about what is happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And you should read up about the drilling, and you should not be okay with the drilling.
Mm.
If you're from the US, please speak up, please sign petitions, please send emails, please do everything that is in your hand to stop such a heinous crime. The oil crisis is something that is self brought upon, and it is something that the government needs to figure out without plundering new areas. It just needs to probably reach a settlement or reach or find another way to get oil, but not at this cost that it would start drilling in the same area that had a blowout before. So please, please, please speak about this, talk about this, have some furor. We need a more responsible government. We need to have more responsible decision making.
True. Couldn't have said it better. And as always, subscribe to our channel. We have many more exciting, episodes definitely, but exciting guests coming to our show as well that we have lined up. So definitely subscribe to our channel to get notified about those episodes as well. We are on all the major social media platforms, so go us and follow there, whichever social media platform you're most active on. Just go us and follow there. We go live on all the platforms at the same time, so you'll be able to uh, consume our content wherever you are. If you're listening to a recorded version of this episode, definitely consider leaving us a review. And if you're watching live, then do leave us a comment, share your thoughts with us, in all the issues that we sort of highlighted and spoke about. um, and yeah, all these share this podcast and this particular episode with someone who shares your interests in wildlife, your interests and your concerns about wildlife. Share it with them, and share it with someone who does not share your views, maybe has differing views to you. We are all about, giving everyone a perspective on things, and if the more knowledge we have, the better we can, save and protect the environment. So that's it for today, and we'll see you next Sunday, same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.